You're listening to the Selfless Entrepreneurs Podcast, where we chat about the ups, downs, and in between of businesses and how being an entrepreneur is when it comes to self-care, work-life balance, and so much more. You'll hear guest experts in the field talk about their businesses and give tips, helpful advice, self-care, and balancing family and business, and some. Don't forget to subscribe, download, and share. Now let's get right into it. Hello again, and welcome back to the Selfless Entrepreneurs Podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Gamayo Self. Now, I'm not sure about you, but I have entrepreneurial blood running through me. Let's just say my family, actually. So today we'll be chatting about my family history and a true tale of both of my grandparents' journey to being wildly successful and what you can take away from their experiences. This podcast is very near and dear to my heart, of course, because it is personal. And it is about my family, but it is great, good nuggets in here that I hope you will enjoy. And this might be a little longer than my usual episodes, but please sit back with me, enjoy, relax, and take in the stories that I'm about to tell, because I promise you there'll be some good, interesting nuggets for you as well that you can carry on, whether you're just starting out in business or whether you're seasoned. So let me introduce you to the two men in my life who have influenced my take on business and the importance of being an entrepreneur and a hard worker. My grandpa Marvin, I'm going to start with him on my mom's side. He was born in the USA, fought in the World War II, but his family was still migrating during the World War. So they actually immigrated from Germany during that time because, you know, they were actually being persecuted even though they were Germans. So it's a pretty interesting backstory. I won't get into it, but yeah, so that's a little bit history of that. Anyways, they lived on a farm and they grew essentially what they ate and sold produce. Well, and he sold produce at the local farmer's market from what they grew. And so I guess you can say at a young age, he was already starting his entrepreneurial journey, which is pretty exciting. So my grandpa used his money from the service. He bought his parents a home and helped to buy a drive-in restaurant for them, which is pretty darn awesome. He didn't go to college, rather his twin did, but that didn't discourage him from having the mentality that hard work or putting in the work will get you somewhere. And fast forward, years later, he started his business at a young age, and his motto was, and I love this, his motto was, "You're only as good as your reputation." And he really lived by that, as you'll see in one of my stories coming up. And it was in the California Valley, and it really had the best reputation and business model. He was consistent and always paid on delivery cash. He had a solid business plan and really was a self-made millionaire. No joke, I'm not exaggerating. I'm really proud of this guy. Now, he never liked using credit cards if he didn't have to, but if he did, he would always pay them off in 30 days. And all his real estate investments were, get this, they were all in cash. Seriously. So that's pretty incredible that he dove into at a young age, not just starting, you know, at the farmer's market and having that spirit, but also didn't have the college education, and he still pursued with this hard work, pursued different cash generating activities. And so it was pretty cool. Now, if you see him on the streets, if you've seen him on the streets, and anybody who knows him knows what I'm talking about, right? So you would really honestly think he was poor. Like, you would think he did not have a business, that he didn't have any skills, that he didn't have money at all. And because he always wore the same overalls and suspenders. I mean, that's what he was known for, right? People would call him Starvin' Marvin, but in a funny, joking way. And, you know, possibly there's been some rumors in the family that maybe he even made it up about himself because of how he looked. But really, he was a millionaire, and he was well known and established, not just locally, but everywhere. So yeah, it's pretty funny. Now, he was a giver and a charitable man also. So it's not like he took all that money and just, he reinvested it back in real estate, which is smart because, of course, that's another field that I'm in as well. And that's what my husband and I hope to be in the future as real estate investors. So this is pretty cool that he had all those journeys and experiences also. But though he was charitable and a giver, and really the only thing he carried on his person was a real gold money clip, because again, he didn't want to owe anything to anyone. That's just how he was. Maybe it was the time that he grew up in during the war, maybe some poverty, anything like that. But he was a man of his word, and he did not want to owe really anybody anything. So he really did use cash for a lot of things, which is pretty smart though if you had that ability. But let's get back to the heart of the story. So he and his brother, his twin brother, went to a car dealership in Sacramento, California, as this was all in California, and he chatted with the salesperson, and he said he wants to pay today. No loan, nothing. He was going to give them a check. It was on a weekend, but the salesperson was really hesitant. He kind of treated him differently, right? Probably going back to what I said. He didn't look the part of a businessman. And so that salesperson said that he couldn't accept that, and he kind of really gave him a hard time about it. My grandpa, being the man that he was, he always took lessons. He gave lessons. It was all about learning with him as well, which is one thing that I think I got from him and carrying, because I'm always about taking my experiences, learning from them, and sharing it with all of you. I want to give back what I've learned, all my failures, all my successes, any of that. And so I love that he used that in his personal life as well as his business. But my grandpa gave his word, and he gives this guy he wrote something on a notepad, basically with the branch manager of the bank that he did business with. And he gave him his home number, and the salesperson guy, he does call the branch manager at his home on a weekend, on a Saturday. And he did confirm that, that he was who he said he was, and that he had the money. The money was all there. He was good for it. Pay it outright. So then after the guy gets off the phone with him, it was a completely different tone in that office. And he was really treated differently, of course, after that. It's kind of like a rags to riches. And he was given the royal treatment, and just very friendly at this point. The tone was very different. You could tell there was favoritism. And so my grandpa said, he's going to go across the street to that dealership and give his money there. And that's exactly what he did. He went across the street. He gave them his money, and not to that business or the salesman. It's because of how he was treated. And it wasn't the truck that he wanted per se, because he knew what he wanted. Like I said, he was a man who went after what he wanted, and he would accomplish that because he's a hard worker. And so he used his hardworking money, and that's where he wanted to spend it on. So necessarily it wasn't really the right truck he wanted, but guess what? Out of principle, he went across the street and he just bought a truck outright in cash, and it wasn't like a used truck or anything. It was a brand new that year truck, what he wanted. And so I really bet that salesperson kicked himself for losing all that cash deal, and just really essentially a good commission too. And so he was a man of his word, and that goes with his motto, right? Now let's chat some about my other grandpa, Justin. Now this is on my dad's side. But let me just say this. Both are biological granddads. And by the way, so that is why I referenced that this ran through my blood earlier, essentially. And both were similar yet different. They really carried the morals, the work ethics, and reputation, as well as hugely successful businesses that expanded their local area. One was all over the US, and the other one was the same, but he actually was out of state as well and worked on some projects, which is pretty cool. Some pretty famous projects also, I must add. And I do want to preference that I did have the pleasure of working for my grandpa Justin at his office while in college, or rather trade school. I seen how he handled and talked with clients. I seen his drawings, his architectural style, and it did fascinate me. And I still love to this day to just look at the structure of buildings. And when I do, it just gives me an appreciation for how much work goes into it. And I see my grandpa in a lot of them, and that was his passion. But I also seen that when we were at the office, he wasn't my grandpa. He was the boss. And he did act like it. There was no favoritism. And I was expected to be on time. I was expected to do the work, act professional, and definitely not mess around. So he's very strict, very businessman. And also with my grandpa Marvin, well, let's just say that we had weekly family meetings because the family did run the company. He did put them as shareholders in the company as well. My aunts, my parents and my aunts and uncles. And so they had weekly business meetings, and usually they were at our place, or from what I can recall, we always had people over, and it was just the best childhood, honestly, ever. And I really loved that all of my cousins got to visit then, like all the time. We were all very, really, really close. And my parents both worked at the company again, and I seen a lot of the office space and how they did things. Again, though there were family members working there also, there were no favorites. In fact, I really want to branch out and dare say that it was more strict for them. When it was work, it was work. When it wasn't work, it was family. And that's what both of my grandparents was like. It was work and it was family. Those are the two. It wasn't money. It wasn't anything like that. It was work and family. And so I really, really appreciate that. And that's something that I think a lot of us can learn from and take with us as well. You know, we really need to focus on that family dynamic, not just business, but also the giving and charitable aspects as well. There's so many things that can make us successful, and having a good family structure and support behind you is probably the most important thing too, as well as balancing that work, family life, business, because I know as entrepreneurs and business owners, whether starting out or seasoned, probably more starting out because you are digging yourself into the ground. You really are. I hate the word hustle, but you might be doing that in the very beginning to get your business started from the ground up. There is a lot of hard work that if you want to see some benefits from it, but you really have to have that balance. And I can't say that enough, honestly. You just see so many people burn out, and if this is your passion, you got to have that balance and have that family life as well. So circling back to my grandpa Justin, he was an immigrant from the Philippines, and he came here in his late teens, I believe, with his father. He did what he was supposed to and beyond, meaning that once he legally became a citizen, he changed his name to a more Americanized one. And I say that in quotation marks because that's what he said. So he really, really took it to heart when he became a U.S. citizen, that he really wanted to make a difference. He wanted to, you know, fit in or be with the society. And he took pride in that. He served, he did serve in the army, as just like my grandpa Marvin did. And they both were really patriots of this country. So I'm really proud of that as well. And it was in the Valley of Northern California that my grandpa Justin had started his entrepreneurial journey. But let me take a sidebar note that he was both into health and fitness. So remember how I said that my grandpa Marvin grew everything he ate? Well, same with my grandpa Justin. He actually had his own vegetable garden that he tended to, and he was really, really proud of it. He actually had a stone that my dad still has to this day that says Grandpa's Garden. So he was really, really proud of it. And he actually made his famous, well, at least in our family, and especially to me, his famous zucchini bread. I still try to this day to imitate it, but unfortunately I can't. I wish I could. It was probably the love that he put into it, right? You can't imitate that. So he was also into jogging and tennis. I mean, he was serious about, you know, his health, and he was in better shape than all of us. I mean, seriously, he didn't eat fast food that I saw or drink alcohol. I mean, he really did put the word holistic, and whole foods to practice before any of these terms were thrown out and dare I say normalized or kind of trendy, right? And so again, I think I got that from him as well. I love it. I love learning about both aspects of my family, not just my grandparents, but like about my family, and see how it's really always so refreshing to see what traits that maybe each of us have that we can carry on from our ancestors. So it's really pretty cool. Okay, so anyways, moving on to his business. He was working for the city that he lived in, and he studied and had a passion for structural and a civil engineer, and that is what his title was. That's what he did. So he eventually branched out on his own and started the business and ran an office. Now, at the time, it was one office, but he did end up having an employee that was with him. So I believe it was a smaller office. It was just him and one employee. But that employee actually ended up making that employee a partner. So sidebar, there is hope for any employee who works hard and is dedicated, really, because you can move up just like my grandpa did with his employee. He brought him on as a partner. Who would have thought? And so they ran that business together. And then I think it was years later, but I know they ended up opening another branch office in San Francisco. So they ended up expanding their business. And he did many projects and was well known for. He worked on the Reno Biggest Little City sign, that famous sign that you've seen. My grandpa worked on that. And he also worked on the Bay Bridge, the Golden Gate Bridge. I mean, he worked on so much. He has portfolios after portfolios of the work he did, and he did have a reputation. And you can really tell a lot about his character because he studied and took courses from the Dale Carnegie, or the college courses that was being offered. And I even have his certificates then, because I just, Dale Carnegie is really huge for his business ethics and even like motivational books and stuff that I still even have. And so I just love that he took those courses, and he really held to that standard. And so you really see the main component of each of these two very different and yet similar stories. It's the hardworking, committed, and being dedicated that they had to become hugely successful in business and in life. I mean, both had strong work ethics already in place, and both were dedicated and consistent once they made that decision. So they made a decision. This is what they were going to do. They didn't know how they were going to do it. They didn't have money at all. Like I said, they were immigrants coming here. And my grandpa was already a U.S. citizen born here, but his family was still migrating here. And they lived in a trailer. Not that that's bad, but I mean, I'm telling you that they didn't have much. And they were both determined, and they made that decision. They were dedicated and consistent. They also persevered through the pressures of society and doubts all around them, I'm sure, since both had, and again, nothing to start with. They didn't have anything to start with. And they had a vision and a mission and built a strong, reputable brand within themselves and their businesses to where they both were undoubtedly competition-less in their industries at the time. Both had money-saving habits, healthy living and eating habits, as well as physical exercise or activities to stay healthy and fit, knowing that health and fitness is at our core of running a successful business, whether online or brick and mortar. Both men were goal-orientated and had the mindset of a millionaire, but the patience, perseverance, and less stress of saints. And I can honestly say that I am proud to be the grandchild of both, and only wished, if I had to say I had one regret, this is what it would be, that I should have asked more questions and studied their business practices more than what I did gather and glean from. I could have been a lot more successful and even humble in the beginning of my journey. Also, both of their reputations precede them after death, and that is the kind of value I want to leave and give to this world. I really hope that this episode inspires you to dig into your family history a bit, if there are any business owners of any kind, and ask questions, learn from their stories, and take all the lessons from them into your business and your life. And I can only assume that it would be to your benefit. I know it was to mine. I only wish that I had done more, asked more questions, really dove into it. And so I just encourage you to do these takeaways, maybe gather some of your thoughts and start implementing them in your practice. And if you're just starting out, or if you're thinking about starting out, whether it's writing a book, starting a podcast, starting a coaching practice, starting in real estate, any business aspect that you want to do, I say go for it. But I say write it out, make a decision, write it out, and see how you're going to, do it. Take small steps to do that. And I'm telling you, both my grandparents were multimillionaires. They were well known. Their reputation was just awesome. They were unbeatable in both their industries, which were vastly different. But it's because of their work ethics, their hard work, and their determination and perseverance. Listen, it may look gloomy when you're just starting out. You may have doubts. And I'm even speaking to myself on this, because honestly, I've been feeling that way lately too. It seems like, whether it doesn't look like you have money, or whether you don't know how you're going to do this because it costs too much to start up, or because maybe you feel like you have no support from your family or friends or anything. Just persevere. Don't give up. If this is your passion, you have a message, you have something to bring to the world, do it. I really encourage you to just do it and don't hold back. And so again, listen to this podcast, re-listen to this episode, and I hope you can take some information and nuggets with you in your own life and in your own practice as well, knowing that building these healthy money habits and health and fitness is strongly important in all businesses and individuals. So until next week, remember that you can be successful, multimillionaire, or even have that mentality while living humbly and kind. Till next week. Stay tuned for next week's episode, and thanks for listening. If this has helped you in any way, please show the love and share, download, and subscribe. Reviews also help me to reach more people and get this message out.